let's see if our little... Hi, I'm Chip. Oh, God. For today's video, we're going to be vibe coding an inventory management system with a little database to keep track of inventory, as well as a front end to allow us to quickly sort and search for specific things on hand. Now, the reason for this, there are two. First is I do get involved in a lot of maker projects. So basically, even right next to me right now, you can see I have an Arduino. You can see I have these little suspicious looking boxes that are just full of hardware that was created in a physical vibe coding test. And my workshop is a complete disaster, which I may or may not show a clip of right now. So I need something to just keep tabs on these specific electronic parts I have, because sometimes I have ended up ordering multiple of the same one because I couldn't find one. The second is because Alibaba Cloud was nice enough to reach out and be like, Bijan, your videos are awesome. We want to sponsor one. And I was like, all right, I love your models. That wasn't perhaps the specific. The second reason is because Alibaba Cloud was nice enough to sponsor the channel for this video and allow me to do this in a more fun manner. So with that, I do want to make specific note of a couple of things. One is that we're going to be using the newly released Qwen3.5 Plus model through the Alibaba Cloud Model Studio, which we can see right here. And two things I do want to bring up in addition to that. They are giving new users 1 million free tokens. So it's a lot of tokens, I guess, depending on your use case. And in addition to that, they do also have a $5 coding plan. So anyone interested in liking the results we get today can also check this out. The links will be in the description. So thank you to Alibaba Cloud for allowing me to build this vibe coded inventory management system. And with that, let's jump in and look at the prompt and get started. Now, being that Qwen 3.5 Plus is in fact a multimodal model, I've decided that in lieu of just giving it a static prompt with my specific software requirements, I would take it a step further and actually hand draw a wireframe, which you may be familiar sometimes in the testing videos we do. We actually have them create a website based on a hand-drawn wireframe. So I do have that specific hand-drawn piece right here, which may invoke some level of jealousy over my artistic capabilities. But regardless of that, because it'll be hard to see with me holding up that paper on camera, we can also see that I do have it open right here in my image viewer software. So let's take a quick look at this in addition to the prompt, and it will make sense what the specific thing we're going to be building today actually is. So as we can see from the image here in the right, I have dubbed this Invin Tracker v1.0, which is just a combination of inventory tracker, which is essentially what this application will do. And we'll take a quick look at the prompt. I won't read it through verbosely, but just enough to give us an idea of the specific thing we want to make today with Qwen 3.5 Plus. So it is designed to act as a senior full stack engineer. I need you to build a smart inventory agent web app based on the attached UI sketch. So of course this will be included alongside our prompt here. For the tech stack, I have told it to, in the backend, do Node.js with a persistent SQLite database in order to actually be able to save things in our inventory, add things, remove things, and just keep track of the specific amount we have on hand. Additionally, the front end can be React, or it can use a single HTML file with React/Tailwind via CDN for simplicity, or a standard React structure. The aesthetic should be modern and dark mode preferred because it's just a bit easier on the eyes. Use Tailwind CSS. Next up are the core requirements, which do reference this image heavily. As we can see, there are a few specific question marks filled in here, and we can see right here, this is denoted as the creative fill, where we will see several UI, well, not us, the model, several UI elements marked with a question mark in the drawing. These are placeholders, and essentially I'm telling it to creatively infer the best features for this specific spot, because I couldn't really come up with things, but I didn't want this to look too barren, and I want to see how the model does in creatively integrating features that may actually be useful for this specific app in the lack of me having to specifically tell it to do so. So I'll be interested to see what it opts to choose here. These are just buttons, so add item categories, maybe remove item, maybe I don't actually know. Next up, we're just walking it through the add item schema as well, because that is not specifically in the drawing, but it's essentially going to be a button that brings up a new window where we can upload a photo of the specific thing we have on hand. So say, for example, an Arduino Nano, like I have right here, we can put the item name, the location of it, the amount we have on hand, as well as notes. And we're telling it automatically initialize the database if it doesn't exist. And finally, in the output section, we're just telling it to give us all of the code, essentially the back end and the front end, telling it that it must be production ready and runnable immediately. I am kind of excited for this because I always do like, just as a general test, which you may be familiar with if you watch the channel, so thank you, I like giving them hand-drawn wireframes and seeing what they do with it, because not only is it cool to see the way that they build upon just a basic sketch, but it also makes me feel like I have a little more involvement in the end generated result, which I guess is a kind of human behavior, one could say. So before I get too off track, let's basically jump into it and send our prompt as well as this image to Qwen3.5 Plus and see how it thinks. So I'm going to now just select the Qwen3.5 Plus model, and while you can just use it through API as well, I think for this specific demonstration, I'm going to actually stay inside the Model Studio UI because it's just kind of more aesthetic to be able to play with it this way. So I'll minimize this so we get full view window capability, which is definitely not a real term, and then I will drag in our image and paste our prompt. We have our image uploaded, and the only thing I changed in the prompt before pasting it in is just telling it to ask any clarifying questions it needs. I like to add that in when I'm making more intricate stuff than our traditional like browser OS test, just because it can help the model not feel like it has to do everything if it can defer and ask the user. So with that, I do have the deep thinking capability enabled right here. Now I can also control the maximum thinking budget of this process. I would imagine 4,000 tokens. I think I'll probably bump that up. Now, if you're familiar with like local AI, you're used to like wanting to do a specific figure here, which would be like 16,384, I think. All right, I don't think I'll get to that, but I'll just put the thinking budget like right around 16,000 tokens, keeping in mind that it can think a lot for this, and we'll see how this goes. So we have our image right down there as well, which we can click on and view if we want to, but we did take a look at it before. So I am now more interested in seeing the specific chain of thought here. And we can see that this is analyzing the sketch right here as well, saying, okay, the header, Invent Tracker v1.0. I am happy because my handwriting's not the best, so I had to write very slow. But something that I noticed, and I noticed other folks have brought this up now since testing it, the Qwen 3.5 Plus model or the Qwen 3.5 open source model that was released, they're both very, very good at visual recognition. I was pretty impressed with some of the stuff that I ran with it in my testing. So basically it's good at looking at images and properly pulling specific elements of it, which I think will be a big positive for this just because this is entirely based on this hand-drawn wireframe, even though the wireframe is quite well done. And if we look through here, it very likely did not use that full thinking budget that I allowed it to, and that's fine because it's just going to use the amount that it deems necessary, and we don't want it to overthink. Basically, it just went through and looked at the image, decided upon some specific software choices and ways to implement certain things denoted in the prompt, and now it's drafting the code as we see right here. And we can see that the dark mode colors are going to be slate/a gray palette. All right. I interpreted the question marks in the sidebar as filter chips. I added dynamic filtering for all microcontrollers, sensors, and passives. Okay, that makes sense. Sidebar total items. I added a low stock alert counter next to the total count. In an electronics lab, knowing you're running low on resistors is critical. Finally, photo handling to make this runnable immediately without complex file server configuration. The photo upload converts images to base 64 to store directly in the database. Okay, I'll see how that works, and if that is something we need to change, then I will go ahead and do that once we actually get our initial test of this. You need Node.js installed, run, and then it tells us how to specifically install that as well as the dependencies we will need. It has given us the backend here, or server.js, and it has also given us the front end. I'm now sending it just a follow-up question to emulate a noob user, just saying, yo, how do I run this though, question mark. I do have everything placed properly in the specific folder that I've created for this, and I did also run all of the like stuff that was written above here where it says install node and the dependencies, but I want to just kind of push it harder in a way that it is helping a very, very amateur user just to see how it does. So I had received some initial errors here, as we can see in the developer tools console. I pasted them back to the model and said fix it. I was nice about it. Very good. All right. So then I just took the HTML file that it regenerated for me to fix said issues, and apparently based on what we see right here, it did in fact go and do that. So, all right, let me take a peek at this first and foremost, because I'll be honest with you, I want to give it make it look better this way. I kind of like the way this looks. It's not 100% though how I specifically had, I put these little stuff here. They may not have been the best thing. It did go ahead and basically take control of the UI. The argument could be made that this is probably a better usability UI than having like the search over here and then some random things. But I feel like we could pizzazz this up a bit, if that's a terminology. I do like the box there, and then Invent Tracker v1. I'm happy with the way that it reflected my logo. Can I? Okay, good. Passives, resistors, tools, none currently. No sensors currently. All right. Interesting. 5-volt logic level. So we'll put the notes under here, and location has the little location pin as well as the number we have in stock, and a photo, which is something I'll need to upload myself. Let's try the add component before I go and then just tell it to make changes. Test item. This was from an earlier test that I did today, so save to inventory. Very cool. Okay, then we have our test item and we have the thing. So the database is then working, and if we reload this page, everything is saved as well. So that's nice to see. And then, yes. Okay, and then we can delete things as well. Not bad. I think basically my feedback for this is I want it to be a little more artistic as reflected by my initial wireframe. So I've given it the follow-up saying it's good, but don't you think my initial wireframe was artistic, which could be translated to this UI? Let's make it a little more aesthetic and perhaps even high-tech. So inevitably, I will just have to stop the server right here. And we'll probably only have to replace the index.html. You're absolutely right. The sketch has a raw engineering blueprint vibe. Let's lean into that and turn it into a sci-fi and cyberpunk heads-up display interface. I'm down. Oh no, a subtle CRT monitor effect overlay. That I may have to disable just for like to not get sick from looking at it. But we're going to go for some glass morphism meets industrial blueprint, deep dark backgrounds, neon cyan accents and monospace fonts. Corner brackets, scan lines, glow effects. We'll keep the exact grid structure, but style the rows to look like data streams. Here is the high-tech version of index.html. Replace it with this. All right, we should now be able to see our updated, more kind of artistic UI. I don't know if this is going to be an overall net improvement or not. Oh, geez. Okay, so it's definitely got that Matrix vibe. I kind of like it, but damn, because this would look better in the lab. Initiate add, InvenTracker 1.0, system operational ready and secure. Let's see how this looks. Execute save. It definitely did make this more glitchy and matrix style. It's also giving us coordinates as well as the system time. I don't know which one I liked better. Total units 3 critical, which would be inventory critical. I kind of think I liked this better just because in an actual app that gets used for like efficiency and functionality, it's probably not a good idea to have like CRT scan lines on them. I'm going to tell it that. So I gave it back the initial script that it had generated that I liked, and I said I'm just going to use this. However, I feel like we can add in a little Clippy style helper that cycles through a few non-intrusive tips, tricks, and jokes about electronics to make the site more lively. So maybe if it adds in for us just a little cute digital helper, then we'll be all set. All right, let's see if our little... Hi, I'm Chip. Oh, God. It is like, I help track your components. So if we click it, it just says, did you know you have low stock on some items? Click the sidebar. What if I escape out of him? Okay, cool. That does actually work. I don't know. And then if you... Oh, so if you click on it, it gives you more tips. Always tin your soldering iron tip before storing it. And I do like the way that it... Oh, my head is going to be here in the video. I'm going to have to move this for this specific part. But joke, why did the capacitor break up with the resistor? It couldn't handle the resistance. In fact, USB-C connectors are rated for 10,000 insertions. Interesting. I don't know if that's true or not, but this is exactly pretty much what I had in mind when I did ask it for this specific thing, and I would now say that this is essentially pretty much what I had envisioned, but obviously there's only, like, it's one thing to just make this, it's another thing entirely to actually use it, so basically that's the next step now. So I've transferred this little app onto my workshop computer, which is just a ThinkPad laptop, and something I found is I want the default behavior to be to actually take a photo with the laptop's webcam of the specific item that I'm actually trying to upload or create in this database. I have just dumped out a very small amount of stuff that I do want to organize, and it does look like some nerd like Halloween candy haul, but it is kind of cool to see. So I'm going to ask it to change the default behavior just to be to take a photo with the computer's camera. All right, so as soon as I refresh this, okay, we do see Chip again speaking to us, which I guess I can't really talk down on because I'm the one who asked for that feature, but I digress. So if we click add item here, good. We do now see the use webcam button as an option as well. So this laptop does have a webcam that I'm using right now, but it's covered up, so we should at least see some form of overlay. Good. And we have to allow while visiting site for the actual camera. Good. And that is just what we see because you can see now I have my finger over it and it's totally black, but if not, it's just got tape over it. So I'll do, yes, there we go, and good. Okay, so we have our photo evidence right there, and cool. So we added that with a photo taken from the webcam, which will definitely make this simpler. Use the webcam button to snap quick photos of your parts. Very interesting, Chip. That was actually helpful, and it did update to reflect the specific software change that we made here as well. So, being that that is now the case, I can basically swap this over and put it on my workshop computer, and I have some bins that are just labeled now, so I can actually have a location that properly refers to the things I have to sort, which I do believe is going to probably take longer than the entirety of actually making this application. So, we'll do that now, which will be definitely time-lapsed. So I didn't anticipate just quite how long this was actually going to take to organize what really was just representative of one single shelf of electronic components, but fortunately this did make it quite simple, and you'll notice perhaps because it's going to be so time-lapse that maybe you won't, but for some of them I didn't necessarily include photos because it just really wasn't necessary. I mean, a lot of these things are pretty self-explanatory, and truthfully just knowing what bin they're in, which I did also label, is going to be rather helpful because there have been times where I have not been able to find one of these specific things. I had to stop prematurely because I ran out of pre-allocated bins. I do need to get more storage and things of that sort because this is just a very small part of the electronics that I have on hand. So this was pretty cool though. Now I've gone and just transferred the database from the ThinkPad in my workshop, which we just saw being used when I was actually organizing all of this, just to actually film the outro. And we can see here we basically have a little inventory tracker for what represents just a pretty small part of my workshop. And keeping in mind, this is still a pretty small amount of stuff comparatively to what I'm sure a lot of people have. So, and some of these, as I may have mentioned, I didn't necessarily think it was worth putting photos because the photos with the webcam were pretty low res, and other times these are fairly self-explanatory, like a car cigarette lighter USB adapter or something like that. Having the notes was also pretty cool because the Arduino Uno, these are the pretty cheap ones that you may have seen in a recent video. I had some trouble with the USB chip on them and the drivers for that because while they were cheap, that does come with the downside, which is they're a bit harder to use, but I do digress. Additionally to that, if I do try to find them, let me just, okay, they are right there, but we can actually, so resistor, and then we see I have in the notes here all the specific variants of resistor I have. In addition to that, I do also have a different resistor pack. So basically ESP. And it's pretty cool and useful. Okay, cool. So these both have specific photos. Overall, I mean, this is just, I wanted to make something that was actually personally useful. And this is really there's, I didn't show it on camera, but there's some real disaster, mess areas in this abode. So this really just makes it easier to kind of see that. And then we have the units and it tells us low stock. And then how could we forget, of course, our friend down here, Chip, who will cycle through some specific things. And this was probably one of my better ideas that I've come up with, is just the inclusion of Chip himself. Regardless of that, though, that's probably going to wrap this video up. Again, thanks to Alibaba Cloud for giving me the opportunity to do this and sponsoring the video. We used Qwen3.5 Plus. Again, there's a bunch of cool things they have going on right now, like a $5 coding plan and 1 million free tokens for new users. So I will put those links in the description, as one would expect. And basically, this is the end of this video. I just wanted to vibe code something real that we can actually see being used in quote-unquote production, and I am very, very pleased with InvenTracker. So keep an eye for this to be launched as a full-on software as a service. No, I'm kidding, but this was pretty cool. So that's going to wrap up our video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.